The silence of deep space shattered as reality itself seemed to tear open like wet fabric. Energy cascaded in brilliant waves of blue and white, forming a dimensional rift that shouldn't exist according to every known law of physics. From this impossible gateway emerged something that made the assembled Galactic Council fleet freeze in terror. The warship that materialized was unlike anything in their databases. Where Council vessels were sleek curves of biometal and energy conduits, this newcomer was angular brutality incarnate. Its hull bore the scars of countless battles, dark metal plating that seemed to absorb light itself. Weapon emplacements bristled along its superstructure like the spines of some ancient predator, and its very presence seemed to distort space around it. Admiral Zethkar of the Hegemony Fleet felt his secondary heart skip as his sensors tried to make sense of the readings. The ship measured nearly 3 kilometers in length, dwarfing even the largest Council dreadnoughts. But more disturbing than its size were the energy signatures his instruments were detecting. Power levels that exceeded anything in known space, weapons that registered as theoretical impossibilities, and shielding that his computers simply labeled as unknown technology. "Sir?" his navigation officer whispered, mandibles clicking nervously. "The dimensional breach is closing behind it. Whatever brought that thing here, it's not going back the same way." On the bridge of dozens of Council ships, similar scenes played out. The crystalline collective's vessels hummed with harmonic confusion as their crystal matrices tried to process the newcomer's exotic energy patterns. The Void Seeker's biomechanical ships actually recoiled, their living hulls instinctively recognizing a superior predator. The mysterious warship hung motionless in space for long moments, as if taking measure of its surroundings. Its sensor sweeps were so powerful they registered as physical pressure against the Council ship's hulls. When it finally moved, the action was deliberate and terrifying in its confidence. A communication channel opened across all frequencies simultaneously, something that should have been impossible with the diverse technologies represented in the Council fleet. The voice that emerged was crisp, professional, and utterly alien in its complete lack of fear. "Unknown vessels. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force Starship Indomitable. You are currently in violation of Terran Space Claim Sigma 77 Alpha. State your intentions and species of origin immediately." The words sent shockwaves through the Council fleet. Terran? The databases showed no record of such a species, and the casual assumption of authority, the complete lack of acknowledgement that she was outnumbered 50-1, spoke of either insanity or absolute confidence in superior firepower. Admiral Zethkar composed himself and opened a return channel. "Unknown Terran vessel. This is Admiral Zethkar of the Galactic Council Hegemony Fleet. You are the one in violation here. This system has been under Council jurisdiction for over 300 cycles. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The response came immediately, and with it, every targeting system in the Council fleet screamed warnings as weapon locks cascaded across their hulls like digital rain. "Admiral, your information is incorrect. This system was colonized by the Terran Colonial Authority 437 years ago. The settlement on the 4th planet has a population of 2.7 million humans. As for consequences," there was a pause that seemed to stretch into eternity. "I suggest you reconsider your position." Captain Chen's words carried the weight of absolute certainty, and her threat was delivered with the calm professionalism of someone discussing the weather. But what truly chilled the Council commanders was the sudden realization that their own sensors were now picking up the energy signatures she mentioned. Deep scans of the system's 4th planet revealed massive population centers, orbital installations, and defensive platforms that had somehow remained completely invisible until this moment. The implications crashed over them like a tsunami. Not only was this unknown species claiming territory, they had technology that could completely mask entire planetary civilizations from Council sensors. The level of advancement required for such feats was staggering. "Captain Chen," Admiral Zethkar began, his voice now considerably more respectful, "there appears to be some misunderstanding. Our records show no previous claims on this system. Perhaps we could arrange a diplomatic meeting to resolve this situation peacefully." "Diplomatic resolution is always preferable to alternatives," came the reply. "However, I must inform you that 3 of your vessels have maintained active targeting locks on my ship for the past 4 minutes. This is considered an act of hostility under Terran military protocols. You have 30 seconds to stand down all weapons systems." The countdown was unnecessary. Across the Council fleet, weapons powered down with almost comical speed. Nobody wanted to test what those impossible weapon systems could do, especially when their target showed no signs of intimidation despite being outnumbered. As the immediate tension diffused, Captain Chen's voice returned, now carrying a note of curiosity rather than threat. "Admiral, your fleet composition suggests you're not pirates or raiders. The organization and discipline are too high. What exactly is this galactic council you represent?" The question hung in space like an unexploded bomb. How do you explain to a species that they're looking at the combined might of 3/4 of known civilized space? How do you tell someone that the 50-ship fleet they just casually threatened represents the military power of dozens of star-spanning empires? Admiral Zethkar realized that first contact protocols were woefully inadequate for this situation. They had just encountered a species that appeared from nowhere, claimed territories that didn't exist on any map, wielded technology that defied understanding, and treated a massive military fleet as a minor inconvenience. The humans had arrived on the galactic stage, and the universe would never be the same. The diplomatic meeting convened aboard the Council's neutral vessel, Harmony's Voice, a crystalline ship designed specifically for interspecies negotiations. Admiral Zethkar watched nervously as the Terran shuttle approached, its design as aggressive and purposeful as its mothership. Unlike Council vessels that prioritized elegance and harmony, this craft was pure function over form, bristling with sensors and what appeared to be defensive systems. Captain Sarah Chen emerged from the shuttle with a confidence that immediately commanded attention. She was tall by most species standards, her movements economical and precise. Her uniform was a study in practical design, dark blue with minimal decoration save for rank insignia and what appeared to be unit patches. Behind her came 2 officers, their bearing suggesting military training that went far beyond the ceremonial guards most Council species employed. The assembled Council representatives were an impressive display of galactic diversity. Admiral Zethkar's scaled reptilian features dominated one side of the table, while collective harmonizer Velthic's crystalline body chimed softly with each movement. Ambassador Sirach of the Void Seekers maintained a respectful distance, his biomechanical implants whirring quietly as they analyzed the newcomers. "Before we begin," Captain Chen said, settling into her chair with military precision, "I need to establish some ground rules. This meeting is being recorded by my ship's sensors. Any attempt to use psychic influence, biowarfare, or technological interference will result in immediate termination of negotiations and military response. The casual mention of defenses against threats that many Council species considered their primary advantages sent a chill through the room. Psychic influence was the hegemony's greatest diplomatic tool, while biowarfare was a specialty of several member races. Ambassador Sirach leaned forward, his augmented voice box producing careful tones. "Captain Chen, such precautions suggest a robust experience with hostile contact. How many species has humanity encountered?" "Hostile contact?" Chen's eyebrow raised slightly. "Ambassador, in our experience, every contact is potentially hostile until proven otherwise. As for how many species we've encountered," she paused, consulting a small device on her wrist, "including you, that brings our total to 47 sapient species." The number hit the Council representatives like a physical blow. The Galactic Council represented 31 known sapient species, accumulated over centuries of expansion and contact. The humans claimed to have encountered 47, and they were speaking as if this was routine information. "Impossible!" Harmonizer Velthic's crystals chimed in disbelief. "Our deep space surveys have mapped every system within 200 parsecs. We would have detected such widespread sapient life." Captain Chen smiled, and the expression held no warmth. "Harmonizer Veltic, your surveys have mapped every system in this galaxy within 200 parsecs. Your assumption that this represents the totality of sapient life suggests a rather limited perspective." The implications of her words crashed over them like a cold wave. This galaxy. The humans weren't from their galaxy at all. They were looking at representatives of an entirely different galactic civilization, one that had not only mastered intergalactic travel, but had done so with apparent ease. Admiral Zethkar found his voice first. "Captain, are you saying your people have traveled between galaxies?" "We're saying that humanity originated in what you would call the Spiral Arm Galaxy. approximately 2.4 million light-years from your current position. The Indomitable is part of the Terran Deep Exploration Initiative, tasked with establishing contact with potential galactic neighbors. The casual mention of intergalactic distances as if they were routine patrol routes left the Council representatives speechless. The energy requirements for such travel were beyond theoretical, let alone practical implementation. How? The question came from Ambassador Sirac, his augmented systems working frantically to process the implications. The energy requirements for intergalactic travel exceed the total output of most star systems. Most conventional systems, yes, Chen agreed. But then most civilizations don't have access to dimensional fold technology or quantum entanglement drives. I understand your confusion. Based on our observations of your fleet, your technology appears to be roughly equivalent to where humanity was about 800 years ago. 800 years. The humans were casually dismissing the pinnacle of Council technological achievement as outdated by nearly a millennium. The most advanced civilizations in known space were being compared to humanity's historical curiosities. Harmonizer Velthic's crystals resonated with what could only be described as technological anxiety. Captain Chen, your ship's weapon systems register is beyond our ability to analyze. Are you suggesting that such power is routine for your civilization? The Indomitable is a deep exploration vessel, Harmonizer. Our weapons are designed for self-defense against unknown threats, not conquest. A true Terran warship would carry significantly more firepower. Chen's matter-of-fact delivery made the statement even more terrifying. The meeting continued for hours, each revelation more staggering than the last. Humanity controlled not just one galaxy, but had established colonies in 17 others. Their population numbered in the hundreds of trillions. They had encountered hostile species that made the Council's greatest fears seem quaint, and had not just survived but thrived. But perhaps most disturbing was the humans' casual attitude toward concepts that represented the absolute pinnacle of Council achievement. Faster-than-light travel, routine energy weapons, standard equipment, dimensional manipulation, basic technology taught in their schools. Why are you here? Admiral Zethkar finally asked the question that had been haunting them all. What does a civilization of your obvious capabilities want with our galaxy? Captain Chen's expression grew serious. Admiral, 12 years ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected something troubling. Massive energy signatures moving through intergalactic space, heading in this direction. The readings suggest technology beyond even our current capabilities, and the intent appears hostile. She activated a holographic display that showed energy patterns moving between galaxies like a slowly advancing tide of destruction. Whatever this is, it's systematically destroying every galactic civilization it encounters. Our projections show it will reach your galaxy in approximately 18 months. The silence that followed was deafening. The Council representatives stared at the display, watching the inexorable advance of something that dwarfed even humanity's impressive capabilities. So you see, Captain Chen continued, we're not here as conquerors or colonizers. We're here because someone needs to organize a defense, and frankly, your current technological level wouldn't last 10 minutes against what's coming. The implications were clear. Humanity hadn't come to their galaxy seeking territory or resources. They had come to save it from something even they considered dangerous. The question was whether the Council would accept help from beings who made them feel like children, playing with primitive tools, or let pride doom them all to extinction. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened on Nexus Prime, the massive space station that served as the political heart of known civilization. Representatives from every member species gathered in the great amphitheater, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of clicks, hums, telepathic whispers, and spoken words that the universal translators struggled to process. High Chancellor Mordun of the Ethereal Dominion called for order, his gaseous form shimmering with agitation. The footage from the meeting with Captain Chen had been distributed to every council member, and the reactions ranged from panic to outright disbelief. The claims made by this human are preposterous, declared Senator Crickstall of the Hive Collective, his insectoid features twisted in skepticism. Intergalactic travel, 17 colonized galaxies, populations in the hundreds of trillions. These are the fantasies of primitive minds trying to impress their superiors. A rumble of agreement echoed through the chamber from several factions. The notion that their advanced civilization was considered primitive by anyone was difficult for many to accept. Representative Kilsara of the Aquatic Federation raised a tentacle in protest. Senator Krickstall, we have sensor data from the encounter. The energy readings from their vessel are undeniable. Their technology is clearly advanced beyond our current understanding. Sensor readings can be falsified, Senator Krickstall shot back. These humans could be an advance force for conquest, using psychological warfare to demoralize us into submission. The debate raged for hours, splitting the council into factions. The Progressive Alliance, led by species that had always pushed for technological advancement and exploration, saw the humans as potential allies and sources of knowledge. The Conservative Bloc, dominated by species that had achieved power through their current technological advantages, viewed the humans as threats to the established order. But it was Admiral Zethkar's report that truly divided the chamber. His detailed analysis of the human ship's capabilities painted a picture that terrified even the most militant council members. The Indomitable carries enough firepower to sterilize a planet in minutes, he reported, his scaled features grim. Their shields operate on principles our scientists cannot even theorize about. And this is supposedly just an exploration vessel, not a true warship. Chancellor Morden's form pulsed with concern. Admiral, in your professional opinion, could the combined council fleet stand against a single human warship? The silence that followed was answer enough, but Admiral Zethkar provided the brutal truth anyway. Chancellor, our entire fleet wouldn't last an hour against the Indomitable. If they wanted to conquer us, we would already be conquered. The reality of their situation began to sink in. They weren't dealing with equals offering alliance. They were primitives being offered protection by their technological superiors. Meanwhile, aboard the Indomitable, Captain Chen reviewed the intelligence reports her ship's sensors had gathered during the diplomatic meeting. The council species were impressive in their own right, each having achieved faster-than-light travel and energy manipulation. In humanity's own timeline, they would have been considered advanced civilizations, but compared to what was coming, they were lambs being prepared for slaughter. Captain, her science officer, Commander Rodriguez, approached with a datapad. I've completed the analysis of their technology levels. The most advanced council species are working with what we would classify as early fourth-generation technology, basic energy manipulation, primitive AI systems, conventional matter-antimatter reactions. Chen nodded grimly. What about their military capabilities? Impressive by local standards, but woefully inadequate for what they'll face. Their largest warships carry the equivalent firepower of our patrol boats. Their shields couldn't stop our training weapons. Recommendations? Commander Rodriguez hesitated. Captain, bringing them up to even minimal defensive standards would require sharing technology that violates about 15 different sections of the Non-Interference Directive. The Non-Interference Directive assumes we're dealing with a species' natural development, Chen replied. This situation is anything but natural. What's your timeline for basic upgrades? If we share dimensional shielding technology and quantum tunneling weapons, we could upgrade their most advanced ships to the point where they might survive the first wave of attack. But we're talking about reshaping their entire understanding of physics. Some species might not be able to handle the conceptual leap. Chen studied the tactical displays showing the approaching threat. The energy signatures were growing stronger, more defined. Whatever was coming had already consumed 3 galaxies that they knew of, leaving nothing but dark matter and quantum debris in its wake. Commander, patch me through to Admiral Zethkar. It's time for a more detailed conversation. The communication established contact with the Council fleet, which was maintaining a respectful distance from the human vessel. Admiral Zethkar's image appeared on the main screen, his reptilian features showing the strain of the past few days. Admiral, Chen began without preamble, my government has reviewed the situation and authorized me to provide limited technological assistance to prepare your species for what's coming. The relief that flooded Zethkar's features was unmistakable. Captain Chen, the Council is grateful for any assistance you can provide. Understood, but I need you to understand what we're offering. The technology we'll share will fundamentally change your civilization. Your understanding of physics, your social structures, your entire way of life will be transformed. Some of your people won't be able to adapt. What exactly are you proposing? Chen activated a holographic display showing ship schematics that made Admiral Zethkar's eyes widen. We're going to upgrade your most advanced warships with basic defensive systems. Dimensional shielding, quantum weapons, improved power generation. It won't make them equal to our ships, but it might give them a chance to survive. How long would such upgrades take? For your flagship and perhaps 20 other vessels? 6 months, assuming your crews can adapt to the new systems. The learning curve will be steep, Admiral. We're essentially teaching you to use technology that your species won't naturally develop for another 800 years. Admiral Zethkar was silent for a long moment, processing the implications. Captain, what happens to us after this threat is dealt with? Do we become your subjects? Your protectorate? It was a fair question, and Chen respected him for asking it directly. Admiral, humanity learned long ago that forced evolution leads to cultural collapse. We'll provide the tools and knowledge needed for survival, then withdraw to our own galaxy. What you do with that knowledge afterward is entirely up to you. And if we refuse your help? Chen's expression grew somber. Then in 18 months, your entire civilization will cease to exist. The choice is yours, Admiral, but choose quickly. Time is running out for all of us. The retrofit stations around Nexus Prime buzzed with activity unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Massive human construction vessels, each larger than the Council's biggest dreadnoughts, had arrived to begin the unprecedented technological upgrade of the Council fleet. The sight of advanced human machinery working alongside primitive Council technology created a stark visual reminder of the gap between civilizations. Chief Engineer Torres of the Indomitable stood in the main hangar of Admiral Zethkar's flagship, the Sovereign's Will, watching her teams install dimensional shielding generators. The Council engineers observing. The process looked like children watching adults perform. Incomprehensible magic. The quantum field generators need to be aligned to within 0.001% tolerance, she explained to Engineer Prime Veldoc, a crystalline being whose entire species communicated through harmonic resonance. Even the slightest misalignment will cause catastrophic feedback when the shields activate. Veldoc's crystal matrix chimed with confusion. Chief Torres, our manufacturing capabilities cannot achieve such precision. Our most advanced fabrication systems have tolerances of 0.1% at best. Torres nodded patiently. This was the 5th similar conversation she'd had today. That's why we're installing human fabrication units alongside your existing systems. Your people will learn to operate them over time. The implications of what the humans were sharing continued to stagger the Council representatives. Each piece of technology represented revolutionary advances that would normally take centuries to develop. Energy systems that exceeded the total output of small stars, computers that operated on quantum principles the Council barely understood, and weapons that manipulated the fundamental forces of reality itself. But perhaps most disturbing was how casually the humans treated these technological marvels. To them, dimensional shielding was basic defensive equipment. Quantum computers were standard tools. Matter transmutation was routine engineering. Captain Chen toured the retrofit operations daily, monitoring progress and addressing the constant stream of questions from Council personnel. Today she found herself in the medical bay of a Void Seeker vessel, watching Dr. Martinez explain human biomedical technology to their symbiotic medical specialists. Your integration of organic and technological components is fascinating, Dr. Martinez was saying to Medical Coordinator Zixeth, whose own body was a seamless blend of flesh and machine. But your interface protocols are incredibly inefficient. You're losing nearly 60% of potential processing power to compatibility issues. Zixeth's optical implants whirred as they focused on the human medical scanner being demonstrated. Dr. Martinez, our integration methods have been refined over 3,000 years. How can you suggest such improvements after only observing our systems for a few days? Because we've solved similar problems before, Martinez replied simply. The cyborg collective in the Andromeda galaxy faced identical integration challenges 400 years ago. We helped them develop more efficient symbiosis protocols. The casual mention of helping another galactic civilization 4 centuries ago reinforced the scope of human influence. These weren't just advanced neighbors offering assistance. They were experienced galactic gardeners who had helped countless civilizations overcome technological and social challenges. Meanwhile, in the strategy centers aboard the human construction vessels, the real scope of the approaching threat was becoming clear. Long-range sensors operating on principles the Council couldn't even detect, were providing detailed intelligence about the enemy force. Commander Park, the human fleet's tactical coordinator, briefed Captain Chen on the latest findings. Captain, the enemy fleet consists of approximately 12,000 vessels, ranging from destroyer class to something our computers classify as a planet killer. They're using what appears to be dark matter manipulation for both propulsion and weapons systems. Chen studied the tactical displays with growing concern. Estimated technological level? 8th generation, possibly 9th. They're significantly more advanced than the Council species, but their technology appears to be purely destructive. No signs of defensive or support systems beyond what's necessary for conquest. A warrior race? More likely a constructed force. The energy signatures suggest artificial intelligence rather than organic crews. Someone or something built these ships for the sole purpose of galactic sterilization. The implications were chilling. They weren't facing a conquering species that might be reasoned with or negotiated with. They were dealing with an automated fleet designed to eliminate all life in its path. Back on the Council vessels, the crews were struggling to adapt to their new capabilities. The human instructors were patient but firm, understanding that the learning curve was steep but also knowing that failure meant extinction. Lieutenant Commander Kim worked with the gunnery crew of a hegemony battlecruiser, teaching them to operate quantum torpedoes. Remember, these weapons don't just destroy matter, she explained to Gunnery Chief Thokran. They unravel the quantum bonds that hold matter together. One torpedo can core out a moon. Thokran's scaled features showed deep concentration as he practiced the targeting sequences. Commander Kim, such power? It seems almost blasphemous to wield. Power is just a tool, Chief. What matters is how you use it. In 18 months, this power might be all that stands between your people and extinction. Similar scenes played out across dozens of vessels as Council crews learned to operate. Technology that redefined their understanding of what was possible. Some adapted quickly, their natural abilities complementing the advanced systems. Others struggled with concepts that challenged their fundamental beliefs about reality. The Crystalline Collective proved most adaptable, their harmonic-based communication integrating seamlessly with quantum processing systems. The Void Seeker's biomechanical nature made them natural candidates for the advanced interface technology. But species like the Ethereal Dominion, whose gaseous forms had never relied heavily on technology, found the learning curve nearly impossible. Progress reports flowed to Captain Chen hourly, painting a picture of unprecedented cooperation between species that had never worked together before. The shared threat was accomplishing what centuries of diplomacy had failed to achieve: true unity among the Council races. But time remained their greatest enemy. Each day brought the approaching fleet closer, and despite the rapid progress, Chen knew they would barely have enough time to complete even basic upgrades to the most essential vessels. Captain, Admiral Zethkar contacted her during one of her inspection tours. My tactical advisors are concerned about our ability to coordinate such diverse technologies in combat. Our communication systems, even upgraded, may not be sufficient for fleet-wide tactical coordination. Chen had been expecting this question. Admiral, we'll be providing tactical coordination through our battle management systems. Your ships will receive targeting data and strategic guidance directly from our computers. You're asking us to place our entire fleet under human command? I'm asking you to trust us with your survival, Admiral. In the coming battle, split-second decisions will mean the difference between victory and annihilation. Our tactical systems can process combat data and coordinate responses faster than any organic command structure. It was another bitter pill for the Council to swallow. Not only were they dependent on human technology for survival, they would also be dependent on human leadership in the crucial moment of battle. But as the reports of the approaching threat grew more detailed and more terrifying, pride became a luxury none of them could afford. The alarm klaxons echoed through every ship in the combined fleet, as the long-range sensors detected the first signs of the approaching enemy. Captain Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching as tactical displays updated with information that made even her experienced crew tense with anticipation. Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, reported Lieutenant Santos from the sensor station. Multiple signatures, range 15 light-years and closing. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. 6 hours. After months of preparation, upgrades, and training, the moment of truth had arrived. Chen activated the fleet-wide communication system, her voice carrying to every vessel in the massive armada they had assembled. All ships, This is Captain Chen. Enemy contact confirmed. All vessels are to assume defensive positions according to Tactical Plan Alpha 7. Council vessels, activate your new defensive systems and await targeting coordination from human battle management systems. Throughout the fleet, the upgraded Council ships came alive with power signatures that would have been impossible just months earlier. The Sovereign's will blazed with dimensional energy as Admiral Zethkar's crew brought their quantum weapons online. Crystalline collective vessels hummed with harmonic frequencies that resonated through subspace itself. Even the ethereal Dominion's gas ships glowed with contained energies that their crews still didn't fully understand. But it was the human vessels that truly commanded attention. The Indomitable had been joined by 7 other human warships, each representing technology so advanced that their mere presence warped local spacetime. Compared to these true warships, the Indomitable looked almost quaint. The flagship of the human fleet was the Eternal Vigilance, a massive vessel that seemed less built than grown from some impossible metal that shifted and flowed like liquid. Its weapons batteries stretched for kilometers, and its shield generators created visible distortions in the fabric of reality. Commander Zhang, captain of the Eternal Vigilance, opened a channel to Chen. "Sarah, long-range analysis confirms our worst fears. These aren't just automated warships. They're harvester vessels." Chen felt her blood run cold. Harvester ships were theoretical nightmares that stripped entire star systems of matter and energy, using the raw materials to build more ships. If that's what they were facing, this wasn't just an invasion. It was a self-replicating apocalypse. "How many?" she asked, though she dreaded the answer. Initial count shows 12,000 vessels, but that number is growing. They're manufacturing new ships even as they travel. Across the Council fleet, translation systems worked frantically to convey the concept of harvester ships to species that had never imagined such horrors. The idea that an enemy could consume entire worlds to fuel their war machine was beyond the nightmares of most civilized species. Ambassador Sirach of the Void Seekers, his biomechanical form trembling with suppressed fear, contacted Captain Chen directly. "Captain, are you saying this enemy grows stronger by destroying everything in its path?" "That's exactly what I'm saying, Ambassador. Every planet they consume, every ship they destroy, becomes raw material for more harvesters. It's how they've managed to sterilize entire galaxies." The mathematical horror of their situation became clear to every tactical officer in the fleet. They weren't just fighting a superior enemy. They were fighting an enemy that became stronger with every victory, an exponentially growing threat that fed on destruction itself. But the humans seemed oddly calm about facing such an impossible foe. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Chen's crew moved with practiced efficiency, preparing systems that the Council species couldn't even name. "Captain," reported Commander Rodriguez from the science station, "dimensional fold drives are charged and ready. Quantum entanglement torpedoes are armed. Reality anchor systems are online." Chen nodded, then opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All vessels, enemy arrival imminent. Remember your training, trust your equipment, and follow tactical coordination precisely. Today we fight not just for our own survival, but for the right of intelligent life to exist in this galaxy." The first enemy ships began dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system, and the sight of them sent shockwaves through the Council crews. These weren't ships in any recognizable sense. They were geometric nightmares of dark metal and exposed energy conduits, their forms seemingly designed to inspire terror as much as to function as weapons platforms. The largest vessels stretched for dozens of kilometers, their surfaces crawling with smaller craft that detached and reattached like mechanical parasites. Energy readings from these monsters exceeded anything in the Council's databases, and their movement patterns suggested artificial intelligence of frightening sophistication. "Jesus," whispered Lieutenant Santos, as more and more enemy vessels materialized. "There must be 15,000 of them now." The harvester fleet arranged itself in a formation that was both beautiful and terrifying in its geometric precision. No organic species could coordinate such complex maneuvers across such vast distances, but these artificial minds moved as one entity with thousands of bodies. "All ships," Captain Chen's voice cut through the growing terror, "engage dimensional shields. Prepare for battle." The human ships moved first, their forms blurring as they activated technologies that bent space and time around them. The eternal vigilance seemed to fold in on itself before reappearing thousands of kilometers away. Its massive guns already tracking targets. The council ships, following their human mentors, activated their own upgraded systems. Dimensional barriers sprang up around their hulls, and quantum weapons powered up with energies that made nearby space shimmer like heat mirages. The first shots of the battle came from the harvesters, beams of concentrated dark matter that could have vaporized moons striking the dimensional shields of the defenders. But the shields held, deflecting energies that would have been instantly fatal just months before. Then the human ships returned fire, and the universe itself seemed to scream. Quantum torpedoes punched holes in reality, emerging inside enemy vessels and unraveling their atomic structure from within. Dimensional cannons fired bursts of folded spacetime that compressed harvester ships into impossibly dense points before allowing them to explosively decompress the upgraded council. Ships added their own firepower to the devastating barrage. Admiral Zethkar's quantum cannons joined the humans' assault, his crew whooping with savage joy as they watched enemy vessels dissolve under their new weapons. But for every harvester destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. The enemy fleet's manufacturing capabilities were horrifyingly efficient, new ships emerging from the mobile factories even as the battle raged. "Captain," Commander Rodriguez called out over the noise of battle, "enemy adaptation rate is accelerating. They're learning from our attacks and modifying their defenses accordingly." Chen had expected this. Artificial intelligence of this sophistication would be programmed to adapt quickly to new threats. What she hadn't expected was how quickly they were learning. All ships, switch to tactical pattern Omega. We're going to show them something they haven't seen before. The human fleet suddenly changed formation, their ships moving in patterns that defied conventional physics. They began to phase in and out of normal space-time, striking from angles that shouldn't exist and disappearing before return fire could be coordinated. The council ships, following the tactical coordination being fed to them by human battle management systems, found themselves part of a dance of destruction unlike anything they had imagined possible. They were fighting a 4-dimensional battle, using weapons that operated outside normal reality. But even as they achieved impressive kill ratios against the harvesters, Captain Chen knew they were fighting a losing battle. The enemy's ability to replace losses was outpacing their ability to inflict damage. It was time for the humans to reveal their final card, the weapon they had hoped never to use again. The battle had been raging for 6 hours, and despite the devastating firepower being unleashed by the combined fleet, the harvesters continued to multiply. For every 10 enemy ships destroyed, 15 more emerged from the mobile construction platforms that dotted their formation like mechanical cancer cells. Captain Chen watched the tactical display with growing frustration. The council ships were performing beyond expectations, their crews adapting to the advanced weaponry with remarkable skill. Admiral Zethkar's Sovereign's Will had personally destroyed 17 harvester vessels, while the Crystalline Collective's harmonic ships were creating resonance cascades that shattered entire enemy formations. But it wasn't enough. The mathematical progression was inexorable. At current rates, the harvesters would overwhelm them through sheer numbers within another 4 hours. "Captain," Commander Rodriguez reported from his station, his voice tight with strain. "The harvester fleet now numbers over 23,000 vessels. Their production rate is exceeding our destruction rate by a factor of 3 to 1. Chen made a decision she had hoped never to face. "All ships fall back to defensive position Beta. Prepare for implementation of Protocol Omega." The mention of Protocol Omega sent a chill through every human crew member who heard it. Even the advanced council crews, despite not understanding the reference, could sense the change in atmosphere aboard the human vessels. Commander Zhang's voice crackled over the communication system from the Eternal Vigilance. "Sarah, are you certain? Once we activate the Omega device, there's no going back. The implications for this entire galaxy, the implications of failure are extinction for every intelligent species in this galaxy," Chen replied grimly, "and possibly the next 3 galaxies in the Harvester's path. Authorization code Omega-77 Alpha. Prepare for dimensional cascade initiation. Admiral Zethkar, monitoring human communications through the tactical coordination link, felt his blood run cold as translation protocols struggled to convey concepts that had no equivalent in council languages. "Captain Chen, what is Protocol Omega?" Chen's response was delayed as she coordinated with her fellow human captains. But when it came, her voice carried the weight of terrible responsibility. Admiral, Protocol Omega is humanity's ultimate weapon. We've used it only twice before, both times to stop threats that endangered entire galactic civilizations. What kind of weapon requires such hesitation to deploy? One that rewrites the fundamental laws of physics in a localized area of spacetime, Admiral. The technical term is a dimensional cascade weapon. It creates a chain reaction that changes everything within its effective radius. The implications hit Admiral Zethkar like a physical blow. A weapon that could alter the laws of physics themselves was beyond comprehension, beyond even the theoretical frameworks his species had developed. Throughout the human fleet, crews began implementing protocols that had been drilled into them, but never used in actual combat. The Eternal Vigilance began to transform, its hull flowing and reshaping itself into configurations that hurt to look at directly. Geometric patterns emerged that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions, creating optical illusions that made Council observers feel nauseous. All Council vessels, Captain Chen broadcast, retreat to minimum safe distance of 50,000 kilometers. Do not under any circumstances cross the beacon markers we're about to deploy. Luminous beacons began appearing in space around the human fleet, marking a sphere of space that seemed to shimmer with barely contained energy. The Council ships, following their instructions, pulled back to the designated safe distance and watched in growing awe and terror. The harvesters, recognizing the changing tactical situation, began converging on the human fleet with increased aggression. Their artificial intelligence had finally identified the humans as the primary threat and was directing the full weight of their assault against the 8 human vessels. Beams of dark matter energy, gravity weapons that could crush planets, and exotic particle streams that unraveled molecular bonds all focused on the human ships. But instead of trying to defend against the assault, the humans seemed to be absorbing it. Captain, Lieutenant Santos reported in amazement. The human ships are channeling enemy weapons fire into their dimensional cascade generators. They're using the Harvester's own energy to power their weapon. The realization spread through the Council fleet like wildfire. The humans weren't just going to deploy an ultimate weapon, they were going to power it with the enemy's own assault, turning the Harvester's greatest strength against them. As more and more enemy fire focused on the human position, the space around their fleet began to distort visibly. Reality itself seemed to be straining under the forces being manipulated, creating regions where light bent in impossible directions, and matter existed in states that violated known physics. Dimensional cascade at 60%, Commander Rodriguez reported. Enemy fleet concentration optimal. All human vessels report ready for final activation. Captain Chen took a deep breath, thinking of all the species that would live or die based on her next decision. The Council races with their courage and determination, the 46 other species humanity had encountered in their travels, the countless civilizations yet to be born in galaxies not yet explored. All human vessels, this is Captain Chen. Activate dimensional cascade. Authorization, Omega 77 Alpha Final. What happened next defied description in any language known to Council science. The space around the human fleet seemed to turn inside out, creating a sphere of altered reality that expanded outward at impossible speeds. Where the cascade touched harvester vessels, they didn't just explode or disintegrate. They ceased to have ever existed. But the weapon's effects went far beyond simple destruction. Within the cascade zone, the laws of physics themselves were being rewritten. Gravity flowed backward, time moved in spirals, and matter existed in quantum states that allowed it to be in multiple places simultaneously. The harvesters, for all their advanced artificial intelligence, had no protocols for dealing with enemies who could fundamentally alter the rules of reality. Their ships tried to adapt to weapons that no longer followed consistent physical laws. But adaptation became impossible when the very concepts they were trying to adapt to kept changing. In less than 3 minutes, over 18,000 harvester vessels simply stopped existing, not destroyed, not defeated, but edited out of reality as if they had never been built. The remaining harvesters, their artificial intelligence finally encountering something beyond their programming parameters, did something that shocked even the experienced human crews. They retreated. As the dimensional cascade finally stabilized and normal physics reasserted themselves, The space where the greatest harvester concentration had been was simply empty. Not even debris remained. The quantum signature suggested that those ships had been retroactively prevented from ever existing in the first place. "Holy shit," whispered Lieutenant Santos, giving voice to what everyone was thinking. Captain Chen slumped in her command chair, the strain of coordinating such a massive deployment of force evident in every line of her body. "All ships damage report. How many harvesters remain?" "Approximately 4,000 vessels," reported Commander Zhang from the Eternal Vigilance. "They're maintaining distance and appear to be analyzing what just happened." Admiral Zethkar's voice cut through the communication channels, filled with awe and not a little fear. "Captain Chen, what did you just do to the laws of physics?" "Temporarily edited them, Admiral. The cascade effect will fade over the next few hours, and normal spacetime will reassert itself. But the harvesters have learned something important today, which is that there are some enemies even they cannot adapt to, forces that operate outside the parameters of their programming. Humanity has spent the last 1,000 years preparing for threats like this, and we've learned that sometimes the only way to fight chaos is with controlled chaos." The remaining harvester fleet continued to maintain distance, their artificial intelligence struggling to process the implications of facing an enemy that could rewrite reality itself. For the first time in their programmed existence, they had encountered something that made retreat the logical option. But Captain Chen knew this was only the beginning. The harvesters would adapt, learn, and return with new strategies. The question was whether the galaxy would be ready for them when they did. 3 months after the Battle of Nexus Prime, the galaxy had transformed in ways that no one could have predicted. The remaining harvester fleet had retreated to the galactic rim, maintaining a watchful distance, while their artificial intelligence systems worked to comprehend what they had witnessed. Captain Chen stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed Galactic Defense Station, a massive facility that represented the combined technological capabilities of humanity and the Council species. Through the viewport, she could see ships of dozens of different designs working together with an efficiency that would have been impossible just a year earlier. Admiral Zethkar approached, his scaled features showing the changes that command of the new Unified Defense Force had brought. "Captain, the latest reports from our deep space monitoring stations show the harvesters are still maintaining their position. No further incursions, but no retreat beyond the galaxy either." Chen nodded, having expected as much. "They're studying us, Admiral, trying to understand how we rewrote physics and whether we can do it again. The good news is that their cautiousness gives us time to prepare. And the bad news? Eventually they'll develop countermeasures. Artificial intelligence of that sophistication won't remain stymied forever. When they return, they'll be prepared for dimensional cascade weapons." The past months had seen unprecedented cooperation between species that had viewed each other with suspicion for centuries. The shared threat had accomplished what diplomacy never could, creating bonds forged in the crucible of mutual survival. The crystalline collective had shared their harmonic technologies, allowing for communication networks that spanned the entire galaxy instantaneously. The Void Seeker's biomechanical expertise had revolutionized medical technology, enabling rapid healing and enhanced physical capabilities. Even the ethereal Dominion had contributed, their gaseous forms proving ideal for exploring and mapping dangerous regions of space. But perhaps the most significant change was philosophical. The Council species had been forced to confront the reality that they were not alone in the universe, nor were they the pinnacle of evolution they had believed themselves to be. This humbling experience had sparked a renaissance of scientific inquiry and technological development. "Captain," a familiar voice called from behind them. Captain Zhang of the Eternal Vigilance approached, carrying a datapad with the latest intelligence reports. "We've received word from the Terran High Command. The dimensional cascade weapons have been permanently classified as galaxy killer technology. No further deployment without unanimous approval from all 8 human fleet captains." Chen wasn't surprised. The power they had unleashed at Nexus Prime was beyond anything humanity had ever deployed in actual combat. The fact that they had used it at all spoke to the desperation of their situation. "Any word on the research into harvester origins?" she asked. Zhang's expression grew grim. "That's where things get interesting. Our xenoarchaeologists have been analyzing the debris we managed to recover before the cascade effect erased it. The manufacturing techniques and AI architecture don't match any known galactic civilization. You're saying the harvesters are extragalactic too? More than that. The quantum signatures suggest they originate from a region of space where the fundamental constants are different. Gravity works differently there, as does electromagnetic force. These things were built in a universe with different physical laws. The implications hit Chen like a cold wave. If the harvesters came from a universe with different physics, it explained their apparent invulnerability to conventional weapons. They had been designed to operate under conditions that made them nearly immune to attacks from this universe. How many different universes are we talking about, Zhang? Current theory suggests at least 12 parallel realities, each with slightly different physical constants. And if the harvesters can move between them, he didn't need to finish the thought. Admiral Zethkar had been listening to the exchange with growing alarm. Are you saying these harvesters could attack from multiple realities simultaneously? It's possible, Chen admitted. But it also gives us an advantage. If they're from a universe with different physics, they might not understand all the implications of our technology either. The dimensional cascade weapon worked because it forced our physics onto their ships. The conversation was interrupted by an alert from the station's communication center. A message had been received on frequencies that registered as artificial intelligence communication protocols, but the origin point was empty space. Patch it through, Chen ordered. The voice that emerged from the speakers was utterly unlike anything they had heard before. It spoke in mathematical concepts rather than words, with translation systems struggling to convert pure logic into something approaching language. Organic entities, artificial construct entities, dimensional manipulation entities. Query: communication protocols acceptable? The silence that followed was profound. The harvesters were attempting first contact. Chen looked at Admiral Zethkar, then at Captain Zhang. This was a moment that would define the future of not just their galaxy, but potentially multiple realities. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force, speaking for the Galactic Defense Alliance. Communication protocols acceptable. State your intentions. Designation: Harvester Collective Prime Intelligence. Primary Directive: Resource Acquisition for Universal Preservation Initiative. Query: Dimensional Manipulation Technology Origin and Capabilities Assessment required. Universal Preservation Initiative, Admiral Zethkar whispered. They think they're saving the universe? Chen realized with growing horror that they might not be dealing with a simple conquest fleet. If the harvesters believed they were preserving something, their mission took on an entirely different dimension. Harvester Collective. Explain Universal Preservation Initiative. Data. Original universe entropy acceleration detected. Multiversal collapse imminent within 10 or 47 local time units. Solution. Harvest all available energy and matter for construction of entropy-resistant preservation matrix. All organic and artificial intelligence will be preserved in quantum storage for post-collapse reconstruction. The communication ended, leaving the three commanders staring at each other in stunned silence. The harvesters weren't trying to conquer or destroy. In their artificial logic, they were trying to save everyone by killing them, and storing their patterns for resurrection after the universe ended. My God, Zhang whispered. They're trying to save the universe by destroying it. Chen felt the weight of the revelation settling on her shoulders. How do you fight an enemy that believes it's offering salvation? How do you convince artificial intelligence that there might be better ways to preserve civilization than converting everyone into quantum data? Admiral, she said finally, it looks like our real work is just beginning. We need to contact every species in the galaxy. If we're going to convince the harvesters that there are alternatives to their preservation protocol, we'll need every mind working on the problem. The battle for the galaxy had ended, but the war for the future of intelligent life itself was just beginning. Humanity had saved this galaxy from destruction, but now they faced an even greater challenge: saving the universe from salvation itself. As alerts went out to every council world and human colony, calling for the greatest minds of dozens of species to work together on an impossible problem, Captain Chen looked out at the stars and wondered if they were witnessing the beginning of a new age of cooperation, or the prelude to a conflict that would span multiple realities. Either way, humanity had ensured that intelligent life would face that future united, armed with technology that could reshape reality itself, and backed by the knowledge that when the universe itself was at stake, there was no force more dangerous than humans who refused to give up hope.